Akandamandalakaram vyaptam yana characharam tatpadam darshitam yena tasmai shri gurave namah. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamivavashishyate. This is full and that is full. We cannot subtract fullness from fullness, not only in this world, but in the world of the Absolute. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Well, firstly, thank you very much for all your kind greetings on this Guru Purnima day. And I'm sorry I can't be with you, those people who are there in Ireland, particularly in Dublin. But I shall be with you not so long from now. In any event, I'm with you always. And so we can discuss what is Guru Purnima Day, what is Guru, what is Purnima, what does all this mean? And you just heard a prayer which tells us about fullness, Purna. And of course, Purnima is a full moon. What's the significance of any celebration on a full moon? You know, we have many statistical records that tell us that people go half crazy at full moon, or people are inspired at full moon, or many crimes increase at full moon. Probably, though, because there's more light. But that's the reason why we would celebrate a full moon, because there is more light, and light reflected from the sun representing perhaps the absolute intelligence or consciousness reflected in the moon. And as we know, the word for moon really, in many different languages, will reflect the mind. So when we talk about lunacy, and then we say the lunar month and so on, you can see these connections. So what is our condition normally? If you really have a good look at yourself, myself, everybody, we can have a good chuckle, because we all seem to be behaving in a kind of mad way. And sometimes we're even-minded, and sometimes we're happy, and sometimes we're disturbed, and sometimes we're unhappy, and sometimes we're angry, and sometimes we shout, and sometimes we are calmer. Well, this is a typical human being. So what are we suffering from? We're suffering from a malady of ignorance. This is related in many mythologies. For example, in the Abrahamic traditions, there's that wonderful story from Genesis about Adam and Eve. And the whole thing, the whole paradise, gets disturbed. Their pristine sense of happiness gets disturbed when they discover two things. When they discover good and evil. In other words, when they discover knowledge and ignorance. When they discover pairs of opposites. And then they want the good and they don't want the evil. They want the happiness, they don't want the unhappiness. And then a struggle begins. Only because we have put ourselves in a small bubble and taken life more seriously than it actually is. Is life a Garden of Eden? Is it a pristine place where we should get happiness? On the surface, no. Underneath, yes. It is only when we go underneath that we find the true happiness. When we find the thing that never changes. This is the whole thrust of the Vedantic tradition. And the Vedantic tradition comes to us because inspired people, people who are really something like the light indicating knowledge and spreading it everywhere to everybody. In that case, what happens is we have a series of lights which are consistent and have the effect of enlightening our minds, making our minds full. And at that case, in that point, then what is the Guru? The Guru is not only the person that has led you from darkness to light as a person, but also your own mind that has done it. And so the ultimate guru is your own mind, leading us from darkness to light. Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyoti gamaya, mrityo amritam gamaya. Different phrases for the same thing. That the world is not as real as we think it is only a relative reality. It requires something to relate to. And secondly, let us lead us from darkness, the darkness of ignorance, to light. In turn, that leads us to what we desire the most, and that is immortality. What are we suffering from? We're battling against death. We don't want to live a short life, we want to live forever. And that's a fundamental desire. How to do it? Let us try to find it out. Much of modern science and chemistry today is because people were involved in alchemy and interest in finding what is this nectar of immortality. In the medieval tales of Europe, they were looking for the Holy Grail. The greatest teachers of all, incomparable, will be what we call these incarnations. We know probably of a few, there may be more, and there will be more to come. From age to age, wherever there is a disharmony, then a cosmic balancing power comes in and corrects it for the next few thousand years until we become stupid again. We were already stupid. And the chronological system within Hinduism will state that as time rolls on, we get more and more silly. The world becomes more and more mad. I don't think we need much conviction or convincing of this when we look around the world at the state of affairs. So, from age to age, these great lights come. And from these lights will come many other lights. And these become personalized gurus. And so I don't personally, as you know, like this word guru, because it's somehow taken on a different meaning, let's say from the 1960s and 70s, where people decided to spread on the back of great surge of interest in Oriental philosophy and spirituality, starting from Swami Vivekananda there in 1893, and even a little bit before with the Transcendentalist movement in America and so on. There we see a new resurgence of interest in these things, a lot to do with pop culture and so on, and a reciprocal influx of so-called gurus, all receiving a very bad reputation for everybody, and then going back and re-importing it into the native or country of origin for this philosophy, namely India itself. And so, when you say guru, this has taken on a very unfortunate kind of flavor. And it's much better, probably, to see it's a competent teacher. Then we have to ask what makes a teacher competent, and what is the value of it, and how should we behave toward it. There's a wonderful passage that Krishna gives us in the Bhagavad Gita, talking about the supremacy of knowledge. And that is really where we would want to head for. What is our purpose of life? Our purpose of life is to transcend the metaphorical Garden of Eden, to transform this knowledge of good and evil into a way of harmonizing discord and going above, being trigunatita, transcending these three evolutionary forces that bring us confusion and difficulties. So therefore, it is no surprise that ignorance, maya, nature, all are synonymous terms. But there's a positive side to it, and that is that what we call Shakti, this energy which is there in the universe. We've discovered in science that everything is resolved to a universal energy, only one thing. And that energy can never be created, it can never be destroyed, it is always there. And because it has no beginning, it cannot be considered to be actual. Actual means something is born and lives and dies and so on, is not something that is constantly already there. And so when we say Maya, we are talking of some kind of veiled illusion, some kind of covering through which we're looking through a glass darkly, is St. Paul's expression. And so, in covering this subject in a few stanzas, 4 or 5 stanzas, Krishna has this to say. He says, Tadvidi pranipate na pariprashne na sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninos tattam darshinaha. Learn this, what? This knowledge, sacrifice. Learn this by what? By prostration. Prostration means a sense of humility. If you take it as humiliation, then you've taken the wrong thing. You've made it an egoistic thing. By prostration, that is a willingness to open yourself. Prostration by inquiry and by humble service. To whom? It is to a teacher, a competent teacher. The wise who have seen the truth will instruct you in the knowledge. The first qualification, therefore, of a competent teacher is they must be conversant with the truth. They must have seen it firsthand. We always recall Swami Vivekananda as Naran as a young student with an inquiring mind and as a skeptical mind, asking, have you seen God? Have you seen God? Not getting any satisfactory answers. We are told that he asks his master. He didn't know it would be his master, but he was testing him out. Are you a competent teacher? Have you seen the truth? Sir, have you seen God? And it is reported to have been said that Ramakrishna replies, laughs, not only have I seen him, he's clearer to me than you sitting there, and you also can see him. This proviso is there. That is a real teacher. A real teacher will tell us, without any egoism, what makes these gurus that have come from the 60s and 70s discredited was the fact that they had not overcome this ego, a desire for wealth and status, puffed up ego sitting on a throne. I always remember way back, and there was a 14-year-old guru who came to South Africa at the time, and he was 14 for many years, and he created such a disruption in South Africa. The Indian community got together and said, please throw this man out. He was promising enlightenment by touching people's eyes and so on. Gullible people saw this, understood this, because that's not how enlightenment comes. Enlightenment comes primarily for a corresponding movement from the student. So a response, just as the moon's fullness and brightness is really a response to the reflection of the sun. So what is the evidence of this competent teacher? First of all, they must have seen the truth. And they must also have put this caveat in. Nothing to do with me, because all I'm doing is being the alarm. What is the alarm? You determine to get up at a certain time in the morning, you set an alarm call. Hey, come on, wake up, wake up, wake up. After a few minutes, the person goes back to sleep. The teacher comes along, come on, wake up again. See, Uttishtata Jagrata Prapya Viran Nibodhata. Rise and wake, says Swami Vivekananda in his interpretation of this famous verse in the Kathopanishad. Don't stop until the goal is reached. So wake up. Come on, wake up. And when we often drift to sleep again, as we always do, living in a perpetual kind of dreamy, non-existent world, the Guru then will tell us, please wake up. The competent teacher will tell us. So the competent teacher will have no other motive other than pure love, a desire to say, let us all wake up, please, and do it in a specific way. What is that specific way? In this age of Kali Yuga, we would need to understand that the primary discipline for this age would be love of God. love of God has this benefit. We don't have to undergo any formal renunciation. All we have to do is increase our attraction, increase our attachment to a living, loving God. And other things will get automatically left behind. And it's a sweet path. And it involves only one thing, the easiest thing we could possibly do. That is lovingly repeat God's name. There could be no easier way. In this day and age, what easy way there is. Everybody can do it. Anybody can do it. To lovingly repeat the name of that being which has provided us everything for free. Digesting our food, never going on strike, never complaining, never grumbling, never criticizing. It's like a free flow of everything, and that free flow we call divine grace. Then what is this so-called competent teacher? I'll use an example that you'll be familiar with because I always use it, and I think at every Guru Purnima occasion I use it. Imagine that there is a reservoir of water on a high place. Even the ancient Romans knew it. They were able to make these huge aqueducts to bring water by gravity from a high spot. And later, I think, in various palaces where they designed gardens and what have you, they found a mechanical way of raising water up to a high point and allowing gravity to do the work. This reservoir is capable of feeding a whole city. Now, to have a reservoir with water freely flowing, taking any form you like, because, as we know, it's a useful analogy, life requires water. Water is life in that sense. Now imagine, how do you feed a town? It has to go by gravity through a pipeline or maybe a channel of some kind, and comes through to different outlets, faucets if you will. Not everybody will be located in the same area. Everybody will want to have a different access to a different faucet. But opening the faucet, you get this divine grace flowing through. That faucet is called the competent teacher, or we may say Guru, understanding my reservation about the word, in its true sense, authentic sense. So that faucet is the Guru. And therefore, the Guru is God. This is a very difficult concept, very often in Western culture. How can a human being be God? We're culturally averse to this idea. We're repelled by this idea. This idea is repugnant. And many people in the Middle East also, Muslims and so on, would find this an abhorrent concept. Except, of course, Muhammad is seen to be a perfect being. The prophets are seen to be enlightened beings. And this kind of concept of teachers is there in every religion as a necessity. Often people will ask, well, how can a guru be God? We'll deal with that question first. It is the same grace or the same water that is flowing through this instrument called a faucet, that is there through the pipeline. And that pipeline is Guru Parampara, a lineage. Where will I find a guru? Well, first inquiry, try to find out the lineage. And the lineage is the pipeline. Therefore, what is the real guru? The real guru is Sat Chit Ananda. It is existence itself, consciousness itself, and bliss, the absolute description of the absolute itself. The reservoir is nothing else but this absolute, indescribable, and therefore attempt to describe it will be in a language we can understand, something that expresses infinite expansion, infinity, undividedness, with a root called Brah. So Brahman, the absolute, sitting there as a reservoir, awaiting us, available for us. All we have to do is open the faucet, recognize the faucet, and allow it to open and pour water into our domestic life. Therefore, this teacher, this competent teacher, we're have no motive, will give you the opportunity to tap into your full potential. In Sri Ramakrishna's language, the great, great Guru, because the great competent teacher, the enlightened one for this age, would say that the Guru is something like a matchmaker introducing your chosen ideal. My dear, this is your chosen ideal. Chosen ideal, this is your devotee. And here is a suitable mantra to facilitate the process. And along with the mantra, don't think it is any mantra. Don't write it off just because we may have heard bija mantras and so on before. It contains this great, great potency, because the full force from the allegory of the reservoir, from the reservoir, all that water, through the pipeline itself, and the great force with which it comes out. When you restrain it, there's all that force behind it and comes out. And this is what we call mantra shakti. This is the great, great power that is transmitted through the instrumentation of Guru. But another question arises, and I have heard this many times. What's the need for a human intermediary? They've misunderstood it. It's not an intermediary. When you take a light and show somebody, look, did you see this? Did you see that? Supposing you lose something outside in the dark, you take a torch and look for it. Is the torch an intermediary? No. It's a way for you to directly see what is there. So it's not that the teacher or the Guru is an intermediary, not at all. It is simply somebody who says, come on, see this. Now in the Bhagavatam, 24 Gurus are mentioned in the story of the Avaduta, not all of them human. And therefore when we look at the whole broad question of teachers, we have to take that message also. When I do some useful practical exercises with devotees, with people, one of the exercises I try to include, for various reasons, including physical exercises, come on, let's go and take a walk. Where will we walk? Well, normally where I give talks, there's always an opportunity to walk in a wonderful area where there is nature. Even in our own ashram, when you go up to the green, a kind of hill, a park, which is a very simple park, and yet it has one of the most astonishing views of the hills or mountains, as the Irish like to call them, beyond the city. That is the Dublin Wicklow Mountains, maybe only not more than 3,000 feet above sea level. And so wherever I am, come for a walk, but make this walk mindful so that you can notice all the indicators of this supreme lover, the sky, the ground on which you walk, what is Ishtadevata, what is your person chosen ideal. It is not only the goal, it is also the way. Jesus said, I am the way. So we have all these multiple opportunities in so-called regular life to stop this diversion of the mind in the worrisome area, the worrisome quarter, which is prefaced by what if? What if this, what if that? Supposing this, supposing that? No. When you tune into the glory of the divine self here and now, these future worries will go away, immediately disappear. And so, what is the competent teacher telling us? Saying, look here, look now. And so that is why Krishna is telling us, learn this knowledge. How so? By prostration. Prostrating at the feet of the Satchit Ananda, by inquiry, asking questions, finding out what is the truth about things, and also by humble service to the Guru. There is a wonderful example, one of Sri Ramakrishna's great monastic disciples who came out as, Shashi Maharaj came out as Swami Purnananda. His monastic name tells a big story. because Swami Vivekananda had wanted the name Ramakrishna for himself. But he realized there was one more deserving, and that is Shashi Maharaj, who dedicated his whole life in a primary way, great scholar as he was, to the service of Ramakrishna, not only during Ramakrishna's life, but post Ramakrishna's life too. Being the kind of mother of the mother house of Baranagar Monastery, where others would wander, he faithfully looked after the relics of the Holy Mother, of the Divine Master, standing there, sitting there, enthroned in there, and continue to do so. So, service to the teacher. Why would that be important? Is because you're accessing grace, you're drinking the water of divine grace, the flowing nectar of it continuously. So, in this way, he says, to those who have seen the truth and who will instruct you in that knowledge. And if you know this, you will not fall again into confusion. All of us are suffering from this confusion. And by this you will see all beings in yourself and all in me. How many times this is repeated, this kind of phrase or variations of it. Seeing this self, yena bhutani asheshana drukriyascha atmani ato mayi. Seeing this self in all beings and all beings in the self. It requires this opening, this responsiveness to the teacher on the one hand, and there's a willingness, open channel of divine grace, always ready to flow. Open the faucet, and that will be enough of it. Then we have to make sure we don't fall into a great error. We have to make sure that we don't idolize the Guru to the point of, although despite the fact that Shankaracharya's, you see the Guru Stotram and all these kinds of things, praising the Guru, you cannot get anything without the grace of the Guru. This is very clearly put in so many ways. Like you will not get anything, you don't get any kind of benefit from all kinds of spiritual activities without the grace of the Guru. I summarize this in today's thought. In today's thought, I put it as the last verse, if I can find it. If not, somebody else can read it out for me. Let us see if I can catch it. Yes, okay, let us catch it. So what is written there is, revered teacher's sacred verses, this is Sri Shankaracharya, declared that in whatever way you are prepared, if on Guru's feet mind is absorbed, not hollow your life, even if all gains got. If all gains got, your life is still hollow. If all gains are got, your life is hollow. What is the greatest gain? At the Guru's feet. Your mind has to be absorbed in this. Because it is, the Guru will be a living example of a very abstract understanding of what is the Supreme. When we say Satchidananda, what does it mean? The only clue we can get is from living existent things, from things which are intelligent, consciousness. You see, there's a great discussion and debate going on in the Western world, primarily. And it is telling us with the concept of an extra cosmic creative God. And it is giving us what is the evidence for a God? Well, existence, consciousness, bliss, all around. If you have a sense of humor, it's because within you is your blissful nature. If you have an intelligence of any kind or a self-awareness of any kind, well, because your true nature is consciousness. And if you have a will to live life to the full, it is because you have an association, an inbuilt association with pure being, with existence itself. So the evidence is all around us. And so this debate has brought up a diversity on the one side, biological evolution, on the other side, extra creative creation. Creation versus evolution, an unnecessary waste of energy, because both sides are defective. When you combine these two, you will see that existence, consciousness, and bliss is unfolding, evolving as this world. And everywhere you look, you can see it. And when you put it in a beautiful story form of the Avadutta, it brings out 24 gurus. What I learned from a bee, what I learned from a swan, what I learned from this, what I learned from that. In the Chandogya Upanishad, we have this teaching. Student goes off, what I learned from the fire, what I learned from the bull who was in charge, as it were, of the herd, what I learned from a swan, what I learned from a bird, all of these things. When we look at the earth, what did we learn? All of these really are manifestations of the divine, leading us toward knowledge. Therefore, these are also gurus. Now, of course, there are different types of gurus. There is the hereditary guru, that is, the family guru. In India, that amongst Hindu families, we'll often find there is a family guru. And of course, that is always good. But in a family is a family of individuals with individual traits. And so, in terms of spiritual maturity, a living guru is necessary. Now, it is often debated, why should there be a living guru? Do we all require a living guru, a human being? And there are many questions that have been asked to Swami Brahmananda on this point. It is necessary, he says, to observe a teacher for a long time before accepting such a one as a true guru. One should not accept anyone and everyone as a guru on the spur of the moment. Those who are desirous of following a true guru should live with him for some time, examine the character, until they're convinced that they are a truly holy man, or woman, of course. And look at the generosity of spirit that Holy Mother as a guru had, Sharada Devi, Ramakrishna's consort. I don't know if there's any other guru like this. She was prepared to give this beautiful treasure of mantra diksha to anybody who called her mother. And so imagine, guruship was replaced by mothership. And that really is a wonderful thing. I will look after you, is the attitude. I will nourish you. I won't examine you. I won't throw you out. I will accept you. And where you cannot practice, I will do it for you. What a beautiful, beautiful approach. And some may say, if I have the capacity to judge a true guru, says Swami Brahmananda, then I myself am a guru. But this is not logical. Don't distinguish. Do you not distinguish good and evil at every step? If you are devoid of the power of judgment, why do you call some things good and some things evil? If you do not have the power of judging a person's character to find out whether or not he has conquered lust and anger, etc., whether or not he has great devotion and wisdom and is uncovetous, then you should sit in a corner in solitude with folded hands, pray to God, "Oh God, give me the power of judging good and evil." Some people feel cheated because they take a person to be perfect without examining such a person thoroughly. He also says elsewhere, in relation to some questions, he actually begins a whole writing on the Guru. He wrote a whole article on this. It was published in the Udbodhan, volume 5, number 5. He says, in the present age, we find religious movements more or less everywhere. Even highly educated, westernized people are turning away from atheism and taking part in some religious movement or other. Among religious inquirers, we find people of different natures. And some say, follow the traditional customs, be initiated by the hereditary guru, tell your beads, and perform religious austerities. Then you are sure to realize God. One should not forsake one's hereditary guru. This solves many, many dilemmas for many people. But it is a great sin to do so. Therefore, no matter what this guru's character is like, be initiated by him and perform spiritual disciplines to the best of your capacity. They themselves will follow some kind of path, maybe the Mahabharata or the Puranas or the Tantras or something. There are some, again, who study the scriptures by themselves. Nowadays, you get translations of all the scriptures, Gita and so on, Upanishads, Vedanta Sutras, Yoga philosophy. These have all been published. And with the help of these books, or sometimes with the assistance of a scholar, they try their best to get at the real essence of the scriptures. That's okay. From these scriptures, they select some method of spiritual practice which suits their temperament, and they practice accordingly. They do not acknowledge the utility of having a guru, but they are missing out. If they acknowledge, if they do not think it to be absolutely necessary, then they make that decision. And some again do not have any serious thought to it. Among them, there are some who say, if you cannot get a Sita Guru, that is one who has realized God, that is basically an incarnation or a great saint. If you cannot get one of these, it matters little whether you have one or not. Where we find such a guru, we will accept him as our teacher, and some among these associate with holy people, and some do nothing at all. But you see, God is omniscient. He will surely hear your prayer if you pray to him. In other words, at that moment when you require the impetus, a competent teacher will arrive in your area and you will immediately recognize the fact. One of the great skeptical personalities in Ramakrishna's life would have been this Girish Chandra Ghosh, a kind of bohemian type who was religious in his own way, but very skeptical of gurus. And skeptical of Ramakrishna, thought it was a pretense. This is called projection. We often project on others what is a defect in ourselves. Being an actor, he thought everybody's acting. And then he recognizes in a moment, and it was a moment where Ramakrishna was descending from the carriage and going into his theater. And at the final conclusion, his final conclusion, created an argument amongst the close disciples of Ramakrishna. He was adamant that this was the incarnation of the age. Not only was this divine incarnation the best teacher of all, but he brought this rapturous devotion to Ramakrishna, many thought being over the top, but it all comes out at Kalpataru Day, when Ramakrishna asks this Girish Chandra Ghosh, you've been saying this and that about me, so tell me who I am. And we recall how Jesus would have said this to Peter as well. And so the similarities between these events, when we study the life of these great teachers, we will see that immediately we get an answer which is couched in language that a person will understand. And if not, it'll come from a different angle, from this angle, from that angle. Blessed are all those gurus, because they have decided to sacrifice their whole life and take on the karma of the other one, of the other person. But of course, it's because of the wonderful karma that is there, that a person, a devotee, has gone through in many, many lives, that they come across a competent teacher. So the Vivekachudamani will tell us, or will tell us of the fortune, the good fortune of somebody who has managed to gain birth as a human, managed to gain an understanding of the truth, managed through scripture, managed to secure the interactions and the grace of a teacher with such a person, and also, of course, being born socially advantaged. In his day, he worded it as, born as a man with a male body. And it's very true in many, many quarters of the world still today. With all these advantages, it is really equivalent to committing suicide if you don't take advantage of this and free yourself in this life. So this teacher is prepared to stand back and open the door. Please, you go through, you go through, you go through, after you, after you, after you. Concerned only for your spiritual welfare. Now, just as there are qualities of the Guru, namely that there has to be no personal motive, has to be a seer of truth, has to know the purport of the scriptures, not necessarily a scholar, but a seer of the truth, and all of these kinds of things. There are qualifications also of the student, and these are laid out traditionally as fourfold. But of all of these, the most important one would be a thirst for freedom. And in theological or religious devotional language, it is a thirst for God. Most of us would couch it in this language. It is a thirst for God. Without this thirst, nothing else can come. In the list, it is put as the last, but it is actually the most fundamental. Now, of course, there's the old story of the teacher that takes as the student, having inquired, when will I see the truth? When will I get a glimpse of it? At least that much. Takes him to a lake and plunges his head in the water. And when he finds bubbles and what have you, desperation coming, he brings him up. How did you feel? The man gasped for air. I thought I was going to die. I was desperate for air. When you are as desperate as this for the divine God, then you know that the revelation is near. And the revelation happens by itself. So, competent teacher has to be sought, and it is a resource second to no other resource. And so this great light comes not as a human being, but as a flowing open channel for divine grace. There is a danger of making a teacher cult, and many religions have done this. In Swami Vivekananda's lecture on Vedanta, the religion of the future, he marks this out as an essential component for most religions. If you take away the personality, what becomes of the religion? And yet it is this personality-based understanding that has created many difficulties and many wars. We may also be in danger of doing it ourselves. But what is our mission? Our mission is to spread this message of knowledge and freedom everywhere, as every scripture has done, without being at all egoistic or extension of egoism, without having any bias, without having any sectarianism, sense of sectarianism. The whole message of everything. In Swami Vivekananda's opening address, he says very, very clearly, like so many rivers going to the sea, all of his addresses are aimed really at this universality. We take away this universality when we teach personalities. The personalities may well be enlightening, may well be to our advantage having discovered it, but it is not the emphasis in the beginning. We have to teach the principles. Absolutely, we do this. And therefore, we cannot equate Vedanta philosophy with any cultural, religious standards and norms. Absolutely not. One is a methodology suitable for some people. Everybody having their own methodology. 8 billion people on the planet, 8 billion religions should be there. We're all constitutionally different. And why should we change? Why should a Hindu become a Christian, or a Christian become a Hindu, or a Christian becoming a Jew, or a Jew? Why should we change these methods, these religions? We find a suitable path for ourselves. But the underlying principle is the same. And that is the point of unity that takes away all religious difficulties, which come out not just as mere difficulties or troubles. The Northern Ireland troubles is a very understated statement of the real issues. Anyway, we remove these troubles, these sectarian issues, these exclusivist clauses in our internal narratives completely by getting to a unity of purpose and leaving the details to be worked out according to your preferences, according to your culture, according to your background, according to your religious upbringing, whatever it is. I think sometimes we forget this in disseminating Vedanta. The great teachers will disseminate Vedanta. The great teachers always have. The great teachers always will preach the harmony of religions, not the importance of diverse theological positions or ritualistic positions or mythological positions or any of these positions. Anything which is cultural is, no doubt, if it's insisted upon, for everybody to be diversified. Now we see in the life of all the great missionaries, Swami Vivekananda predominantly in our times, and many of the descendants, if you will, monastic descendants of Swami Vivekananda, preaching this universality, this pure Vedanta everywhere. That's why we have an Era Vedanta society. And we highlight that. It is an Ireland and it is Vedanta. That's it. And it's a society which you may join. Very clear. Although it is a trade term, if you will. It's a term which can be easily recognized as, this is what we do, this is who we are. We're not promoting any individual personality, any individual teacher. We're not making that era of idolizing everything. In all honesty, if you take Christ away from Christianity, what do you have? And yet Christ's teachings are the most profound and the most significant and the most important. And also to understand that Jesus also can be the light of the world. And Ramakrishna can also be the light of the world. And Buddha was the light of Asia and the light of the world. And so it goes on. All these great teachers are these great lights. I often remember a very famous Swami, many of you know of him, and many of you even know him. It was the very, very great Swami Ranganathananda. And as a young student, as a brahmachari, he joked with me. He said, I feel sorry for you Christians. Why is that, Maharaj? He says, because your God can only have one son. Ours can have as many sons as he likes. And so that was a point of great humor, but the point was taken, you see. So in the beginning was the Word, that was the cosmic logos. That is how we should take Christ. And then manifested in the human form, historically, no doubt. Same thing with Krishna. When Krishna says, equivalent to, I am this, I am that, his I is from the cosmic mind point of view, cosmic consciousness. When Jesus says, I am the way, it is from the point of view of cosmic consciousness. So it is only the followers that develop guru cults. And guru cults, unfortunately, got a bad reputation, as I say, from the 50s and 60s. And so these qualifications are there for the teacher, for the student. Student also has to have discernment, has to have this detachment, and has to have 6 treasures, including faith and all these other things, faith and concentration and purity of mind and so on. Forbearance and all of these things are necessary. There is a necessity for a guru. There's a necessity for a teacher in all of the disciplines that we can find. In the days of COVID, we saw how difficult it was for people to be out of contact with an actual person. This is in the secular world. In the spiritual world, it is about divine energy flowing. It is about self-sacrifice. It is about a resource, an endless, infinite resource that traces itself back to the divine itself. Then, of course, this is also Vyasa Day. This is also a day where it's Vyasa Purnima, and we cannot leave without mentioning this. Vyasa, very briefly, and Sister Nivedi points this out in a certain master as I saw him, certain section there, that there's a great similarity between her master Swami Vivekananda as a great teacher and world mover, and Vyasa as a great teacher and world mover. Why should Vyasa be on this day, this Purnima, celebrating him? Because look at all the things he did and how he universalized everything, the very thing I've been talking about, combining and synthesizing. First of all, he combines the Upanishads, or the Vedas, I should say. He brings them all together. He systematizes them in the Brahma Sutras, the Vedanta Sutras. We attribute this also to Vyasa. He is the author of the Mahabharata, therefore the Bhagavad Gita. He is the author of the Bhagavatam. So much he brings to the modern world of his age. And remarkably, if you look at his birth story, he is born from a fisherwoman. Or he is born from a fish and a fisherwoman and so on and so forth, all of that. That's the story. We won't go into that fully. But the story of Vivekananda, the story of Ramakrishna, even the story of Nivedita, there's no Nivedita without Vivekananda, or Vivekananda without Ramakrishna, or Ramakrishna without the Dakshinaswar. And without Dakshinaswar, well, Rani Rasmani is the one that built it. And Rani Rasmani was of the fisherwoman caste. The story begins with the low caste. And there we have Vivekananda synthesizing everything, actually putting into voice and words is the most beautifully inspired way. I don't think there's anything comparable to his words and his writings. And so succinctly, all by the age of 40. And what is he doing? He is revitalizing, rejuvenating, as his master did, laid the foundations for the whole of this Vedanta philosophy, this message to the world. And more than that, the events of Ramakrishna, Vivekananda present us, and Holy Mother present us, this holy trio, present us with the opportunity, the necessary opportunity for India to expose this to the world, and doing it in a confident way through political freedom. This is why Sister Nivedita was so adamant about it, not only because of her heartfelt sense of injustice and intolerance toward the British Raj eventually, but also the country that Vivekananda loved so much, and she came to love as well. You see, when she goes to India, she becomes Indian. When anybody comes from any country to do this beautiful missionary work of propagating this universal Vedanta philosophy of salvation, should they not integrate fully with the local people which are there? Should we not do the same thing as Sister Nivedita did? Should we not bring that to bear and understand the customs and norms of the people? Only then will there be a shift, a dramatic shift, the momentum of which can never be stopped. That momentum has already started, but it is early days and there's much to be done. And all of you, by being devotees, are carriers of this universal Vedanta wisdom, not through preaching, not through persuading, not through argument, God forbid, but through your very practice. So what is the pure gift to any competent teacher on Guru Purnima Day? It is to enact, it is to carry out the spiritual practices that will initially lead you to a whole flow of understanding and unfolding of your own divine spiritual nature. This is what you have gained. And that will be a beaming light for everyone. So thank you once more for all your greetings. I have to try to reply to as many as possible, but if I cannot get round to all of you, then I do it now. Love and blessings to you all on this day, and may you gain the enlightenment of liberation in this life itself. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you, Swamiji.